Welcome, this is Jim, host of the Faith Influencer podcast, where we're going to dive into discussions on faith's role in everyday life, from navigating blended families to overcoming challenges. I'm a husband, a father, a Bible teacher, an advocate for applying faith to everyday life. So tune in as I share personal stories, valuable insights, and practical wisdom. I'm going to tell you today why you're going to get a divorce. I'm going to tell you why if it's your first marriage, you're going to get a divorce. And if it's your second marriage, and this is a blended family podcast, by the way, welcome to Faith Influencer. This is Jim Cunningham. I'm going to tell you today why if it's your second marriage, you're going to get a divorce. And what's interesting about this is you're going to see that the reason you got a divorce in your first marriage is not the same reason you're going to get a divorce in your second marriage. Okay? Ready to jump in? Here we go. So we're going to give a comparison today. And in this comparison, I'm going to give you just statistically, that has been proven over the years why people in their first marriage get a divorce. Now, for the most part, if you're joining us on this blended family podcast and you have a blended family, you're in that situation because you've been through a divorce. Now, that's not everybody. Sometimes people are in a blended family because they had a spouse pass away. That's a whole different scenario. But for the most part, people are in a blended family because of a divorce. So what are the reasons why people get divorced in their first marriage? I'm going to give you the top several in order why people get a divorce. You've already been through that, so you can just nod your head as we walk through it. But also, here's the other thing. I'm going to give you these in order because I want you to know what to work on. I want you to know statistically, here's probably where you're going to struggle if you're like most people. And then we'll show you, and you're going to find it very interesting, why in your second marriage, you're likely to get a divorce. Now, here's the problem. Half of marriages end up in divorce, first marriages. That's been a statistic a long time. And even though this is a faith-built podcast, if we want to be real, being real is that it doesn't matter if you're in the church or people who don't go to church, the statistics are the same. Unfortunately. I mean, I hate to say that, and I really don't know why it's that way. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. People in the church statistically get a divorce at the same rate as people who don't go to church. So half of first marriages end in divorce. But even more alarming is that 60% plus of second and third marriages end in divorce. So you're much more likely to have a divorce in your blended family, your second marriage, than you were in your first. That's why I'm walking through this. I want to show you the reasons why people don't make it so you know what to work on. So here we go. Let's jump in. Why in first marriages, in order of how they happen, why do people in first marriages get a divorce? Here's the first thing. Marriage counselors, Christian psychologists, others say that the number one reason people get a divorce in their first marriage is just due to immaturity. It starts that people are immature. Now, how old were you when you got married? I was 18. I was 18 when I got married. And as far as I was concerned, that marriage was going to last forever, and it lasted for 20 years. So, but I can tell you that getting married so young, we were very immature. People walk into a relationship and they don't know how to have a relationship. They don't know how to treat one another. They're just immature. So people are just immature and they don't make it. So let's move on from that one. Here's the second reason people in their first marriages get a divorce, and it's sexual issues. Now, I'm going to tell you that one surprised me. Tell me in the comments if it surprises you that that's number 2 on the list. On my list, I would have put it down a little further, but it's high. So do you agree with that? Is that true? Is sexual issues that high on the list of why people get a divorce? Some people say, well, here's why. Because if you're having sexual issues, then it makes you more attracted to other people around you. It makes you listen to that guy at work who's speaking nice to you, or it causes you to see the lady that you work with or friend when she walks by and you start this casual conversation. People say that's the result of having sexual issues at home. I I don't know why it's this high, but it is. I will say, can I just say something to help us in the area of sexual issues in marriage? I heard someone say this, and I'm borrowing it, so it's not original with me. But I heard someone say that if you want to touch your wife's body, learn to touch her soul first. And how you touch your wife's soul is by praying together. I like that. Start there. I will tell you that if you're going to have a Christian marriage, and I'm speaking to the men, if you want something that's going to help in the area of the bedroom, of sexual issues, it doesn't start with sex. It starts with the emotional connection. That's where your wife is. May not be where you are, but that's where your wife is. Guys are different. We've talked about this. Guys are so visual. They can have a knockdown, drag out fight and they're ready to have sex. They don't care. But women aren't like that. When a guy gets emotionally distraught, and let's say he goes from a 2 to a 10 emotionally, guess what? As soon as that fight's over, he can go from a 10 right back down to a 2 emotionally. But his wife or your wife, if you have a knockdown, drag out fight and you're in this discussion and her emotions can go up to a 10, but I promise you, they're not going right back down to a 2. They're going to go from a 10 to a 9 and from a 9 to an 8, much slower to work their way down to where she feels open again to you. So, if you want to help in the area of sexual issues, since it's so high on the list of divorce, learn to pray together. That emotional and spiritual connection is what opens the door to intimacy. How much can I say to get that through our heads that intimacy isn't physical? It may end up in physical, but it starts spiritual and emotional. That's the deepest intimacy that you can have. It is the result of the spiritual connection that we have and the emotional connection. Physical intimacy is the result of that. It doesn't start there, it ends there. So, and I will tell you this, that your wife is much more able to give herself to you physically if you have that spiritual and emotional connection. So, sexual issues are high. There's a little advice to how to make that very important. Learn to pray together. And let me just say one other thing about that. Guys, maybe you've never prayed with someone before. Maybe you've never prayed out loud. So what? Do it anyways. You say, I don't know what to pray with we've never prayed together. Well, just do something like this. Lord, I love my wife. Bless her. I don't know. Something simple, but just start. And guys, men, you lead in that. It's your job. It's your calling to lead in the area of spirituality in your home. So you start, you do it, okay? That's number 2. Immaturity is number 1. Sexual issues are number 2. And then again, as you read, and I'm sure there are other psychologists who would give a different order, but the several that I was looking at said the third reason on why people in first marriages get a divorce and really struggle is because of interference. When I say interference, I'm talking about other people. In particular, other family members. Now, I've recently done a podcast on mother-in-laws, and so I'm not going to get into that now. But let me say, everybody has an opinion, and every family member wants to tell you what to do. Every in-law has an observation. To make your marriage work and survive, don't listen to all that stuff. Don't listen to all the family members and in-laws and all of their advice. And I mean, if their advice was so good, then why isn't their marriage strong? So if you start listening to all that, it's just going to pull you away. I'm telling you, interference is very high on the list. What do you think? Should it be that high on the list? Do you agree with that? That's the third. Here's the fourth. Fourth is values conflict. Now, I can see this one. as being high on the list. Values conflict is really high on first marriages, and values conflicts means this, is that you just have different values. Now, this surprises me because I would hope that you would know that and work that out before you get married. But the fact is that most people don't. I'm going to give you an example. Here's a guy who doesn't go to church. Listen, wife, because this is a mistake that women make more than men. Here you are, you like this guy, you're attracted to this guy, he's fun, he has all these qualities, except maybe he's not a Christian, or maybe he doesn't enjoy going to church, or he's never gone to church. And you were raised that way. Your parents raised you in church. That's the scenario. But this guy says, "Oh, I'll go to church with you." And so he goes to church with you while you're dating. If you're out of town or whatever, if you don't go to church, he's not going to go on his own. He's only going to go to accompany you. I see this all the time. And then what happens when you get married? He quits. He doesn't attend. He doesn't go. It's not important to him. And then you go by yourself. And then you have children. And guess what? You take children to church by yourself. Do you know how many times I see this? You know how many times there's a wife in church with her children and her husband's not there? There's this value conflict. And eventually, it's going to become an issue, bigger and bigger and bigger. There's one, because that's not a value of the person that you're marrying. Listen, let me be blunt. If you're dating someone who does not have the same value as you, as it relates to Christianity and as it relates to the Lord, you have no business marrying that person. I know you say, no, that's a blanket statement. It is a blanket statement. I'm going to say it again. You have no business marrying that person who doesn't share your Christian values. You are so far apart when it comes to values that eventually it's not going to work. That's a big reason why people get a divorce. Now, here's the other part of that. Okay, so listen to this, and some of you are going to want to throw something at me when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. You can just throw it in the comments, okay? I'll see it, I'll read it, I'll respond to it. But if you're dating someone who's of a different faith, chances are, and I have all statistics backing me in this, Christian counselors backing me in this, if you're dating someone that's of a different faith, I'm not talking about they go to a different church. I'm talking about a different faith. If you're dating someone who's of a different faith, that's going to be a problem. So here's a Christian and they're dating a Jewish person. I'm not judging the Christian person or the Jewish person, but I'm telling you, that's such a different faith. What's going to happen when you get married? And the Jewish side of the family is going to want to go the Jewish direction. And the Christian part of you is going to want to go the Christian direction. What are you going to do? You're going to have a division in your home already. You can't marry people of a different faith hoping that it will work out. It's not going to work out. That's proven over and over and over. You're going to go to the synagogue with your Jewish person, and you're going to go through the rituals of Judaism, and you're going to be saying, that's not how I want to raise my kid. Or if you're with someone who is of, I'm going to say not even a Christian faith, if you're with someone who's, maybe you're a Christian and you're someone who's a Mormon, or someone who's a Jehovah's Witness, or I can go on and on and on with that. And maybe I shouldn't even call those out on this podcast, but I will. That's not going to work either, because there's a big difference between Christianity and those other religions, let's call them. They're not the same. You don't line up at all together. It's not going to work. So I understand why values conflict is so high on the list, but we got to keep going. Let me give you the next one. Child rearing. This is number 5 on the list that I'm giving you for first marriages. Child rearing. You married some guy and he's too harsh. Or you married a woman and she yells at the kids and you don't like it. Or you have different parenting styles. The way you were raised, you got spankings. Or the way she was raised, she was put in the corner. and now you've come together and you want to spank your kids and she is abhorred by that. No, you're not spanking them. What, you can't hit our kids. That's what she says. And you're saying, what do you mean hit our kids? I'm not hitting our kids. I'm disciplining our kids. That is number 5 on the list. Does that surprise you? It's so far down. That's often an issue. Now I'm going to say this about child raising. It is not as big of an issue as it's going to be in the second marriages, and we'll touch on that. But it is an issue. Last thing, let me say on first marriages, why people get a divorce, and that's finances. That's number 6 on the list. Does that fit your list, or should it be higher up for you? Finances are just simply someone's in control of the money and you don't like the control of it, or your husband's trying to lead in your home and you want to take the control back because you feel like you're better at finances than he is. And so whatever the reason is, finances is number 6 on the list. All right. For time's sake, let's go to the next list. Now, this is the part that's fascinating to me. If you're in your second marriage, I'm going to tell you why you're going to get a divorce. Let me reword that. If I could tell you why your second marriage isn't going to work, would you want to know? If I could tell you why your blended family is more likely than not to fail, do you want me to tell you? I'm going to tell you. Here are the top few reasons why second marriages and blended families don't work. And understand that this is the order in which they happen. So the first one I'm going to give you is at the top of the list, the number one reason, without exception, the number one reason why second marriages or blended families don't work. You care to guess what it is? Here it is. The number one reason is child rearing. That's the top of the list for second marriages. Boy, I believe this. If you have followed Faith Influencer, or if you want to go look back at other podcasts, we've spent a lot of time talking about this issue. It's the number one reason why second and blended families don't make it is children. That's the number one reason. But do you remember the order that it fell in the first marriage? In the first marriage, child rearing issues was number 5 out of a list of 6. It was at the very bottom of the list. But in second marriages, blended families, child rearing is the number one issue. So what do? Well, I told you the reason I'm going through this is because I want you to know what to work on. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about getting married and it's a blended family and you've gone through a divorce and you have children and you're going to blend your family with someone else, I'm walking through this list so you know what you need to work on. You better sit down with someone and go through some counseling as to how to blend a family together. Because if you don't, and you blend your families together and your children together, chances are you're not going to make it. Why? It's a whole different set of rules. You're gonna get married, and the first thing you're gonna see is, let's just say, you a lady. Let's say you see your new husband disciplining your children. It's gonna bother you. It's gonna make you mad. You're gonna keep it in your heart maybe for a while, but that's gonna be an issue with you. Why? Because there's a whole different set of rules. And so I want you to know what to work on. Sit down and work on that. There are lots of good resources out there. Find something, do something to make sure that the number one reason why you're likely to get divorced in your blended family, make sure it doesn't happen. Work all of this out before you come together. Now, some of you are listening and you're saying, too late, done did it. We done blended our family. What do we do now? Well, this is what you do now. You sit down and you reset. Now, you need counseling or you need some good information somewhere. Go back and listen to our podcast as we talk about this and how to deal with it. But this is what you're going to do. You're going to sit down with your spouse. You're going to say, wait a minute, we're doing something wrong because this is a big issue with us. And now you know from listening to this podcast that it's the reason why you're likely to get a divorce in your second marriage. You're going to sit down and you're going to reset and you're going to say, this is different rules. We're going to have to talk about this and work this out. Just be intentional and do it, or it's going to wreck your family. That's the number one. All right, here's the number 2. Do you find this interesting that the second reason why people get a divorce in blended families and second marriages is the last reason why they get a divorce in their first marriage, and it's finances. Finances is the number two on the list. Now, finances is difficult in second marriages and in blended families because let me just describe it to you with a story. Here's a guy who marries, and he has his ex-wife, and he has his children with her. And so now he's paying alimony and child support. So that's a financial, and he should pay that. That's a financial, I don't want to say burden because it's his children, but that's a financial reality. And then he remarries you, and you have children. So he's supporting you, and he should, and he wants to. He's supporting you and your children. And so now he has his family that he lives with, his family that he doesn't live with, and finances become an issue. And then you have the same thing on your side. So when you put all of that together, there is much more of a strain on your financial world than it was in your first marriage. So finances is really high on the list. And then there's going to be some things you disagree with. Are we going to pay for the college or not? All of these other things. Or you're going to say, why do you give so much money to your kids? Or why do you pay extra to your children when your ex-spouse ought to be doing more for your children? You shouldn't be paying all of that. I know you've had those discussions and argued over that. So finances is number two. If I could tell you why you're going to get a divorce in your blended family, do you want to know? Number one, child rearing. Number two, finances. Here's the third. This kind of finds itself in the same spot as it does in first marriages. Relatives, interference. Same spot, right in the middle as to why people get a divorce, first marriages and even second marriages, relatives. I'm going to say it's a little more difficult in second marriages because now, the jokes about mother-in-laws, right? People are always giving mother-in-laws a hard time. I have a wonderful mother-in-law. But when you remarry, you know what you have now? Now, this may cause you to want, listen, I'm leaning in because this may cause you to want to think differently about remarriage. When you remarry, chances are you now have three mother-in-laws, at least two, because you have the former mother-in-law who's still in your life because you share, it's her grandkids. Then you have your new mother-in-law with your new spouse, and so you have that in your life now. So mother-in-laws become an issue. Relatives are right in the middle. Let's keep going. And then values. Values is number 4 on this list. Values become ingrained over time. Here's why values are a difficult one in second marriages, because now you get kind of set in your ways and in your values, and you don't want to compromise at all. Now, I'm going to say this. Should I say that I'm talking about my brother, or should I leave him out of this? Okay, I'm talking about my brother now because he doesn't listen to this podcast. He's not in a blended family, so I'm going to say something about him. And if he does by chance listen to this and realize that I'm speaking to him or about him, then let it be, because it's true. My brother has been single. He was married, has a child, has my nephew, who's now in his 30s. My brother has been single for 35 years. Right after his son was born, he and his wife got a divorce, and he's been single now all of these years. I think to myself, as much as I love my brother, and he's my older brother, so I look up to him, but I think to myself, boy, do I pity the woman who ever marries him if he gets remarried. I hope he listens to this because it makes me laugh. I feel sorry if a woman ever marries my brother. Why? Because my brother's a bad person? No, not at all. I love my brother. Because first of all, she would come in second or third place to hunting and fishing. She'll never take the place of that. That's one. But here's the other reason. can you imagine how set in his ways he is after being 30 plus years single on his own, doing everything exactly how he wants to do it? Can you imagine after 30 some years marrying someone and compromising? Heck no. It's not going to happen. He's too ingrained after all of this time being single. That's why if you're looking to marry someone who's been single for 30 years, think twice about that. Think twice about that because they're going to be very ingrained. Let's move on. That's values. Number 5 is the fifth reason why in second marriages, and I don't know why this is true, but it is sharing tasks. There seems to be issues in second marriages and blended families of who's going to do what in the house, who's going to do what in the household. Why that's on the list is I'm not sure. If it is on the list, it should have been on the list on the first marriages. I would say it's both sides. But when you look at marriage counseling, they put this on the list for second marriages. Who's going to do what? I'm not going to spend any time there because I don't see that a lot when I'm doing counseling. If that's an issue in your family, I'd be interested in hearing from you. Put it in the comments. Yeah, we fight over who does what in the household. And then the last one, the last reason on the list in second marriages why people get a divorce is because they compare their current marriage to their former marriage. Now, that may go through most people's minds in second marriage, but I'm going to say, for the sake of your marriage, if you're comparing your second marriage to your first marriage, just don't do it out loud because that's not going to go over well, especially if you compare your spouse to your previous spouse. If you say something like this, then you ought to be, I don't know. I'm not going to say what came to my mind, but if you ever say this to your husband, because I had a lady or a man said that his wife said this to him, and she didn't realize that it wrecked his heart for a while. He wasn't fixing something in the house. This is what she said. She said, "I'm sorry, I'm pushing you to fix this. My first husband was such a handyman." How stupid is she to say that to her new husband, that in essence, she is disappointed because he's not like her first husband? That's how he heard it. I mean, that's how I heard it too. If my wife said something like that to me, I may say, well, then just go back. Maybe I wouldn't say that, but that's what you think. Don't say stupid stuff like that. Comparing previous relationships or previous marriages. Let me flip the tables in way of fairness. This would be like you, sir. This would be like you saying to your current wife, "I get tired of eating out all the time. My first wife loved to cook." How stupid are you? Would you ever say something like that to your wife? You're going to break her heart. As a matter of fact, you may not wake up in the morning. Something may happen to you in your sleep if you're that stupid. Don't say stupid stuff like that. Well, comparing is going to bring down any relationship. So there you go. The lists are different why people get a divorce in the first marriage versus their second marriage. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, but let me conclude in this way. Let me just say the reason, again, we went through this is because I want you to know what you ought to be working on. And if you're in a blended family and you've started your second marriage, you better start working on how you're going to handle the children. New set of rules. Go back and listen to previous podcasts. Go find some good material. If you're in your second marriage, you better find out. You better talk through how you're going to work with your finances. You might even want to sit down with a financial planner. But do something because it's going to be an issue. Well, thank you again, as always, for joining us on Faith Influencer. This is Jim Cunningham. Can't wait till next time.